Welcome to Coffee with Bridget, and today's coffee is Caramel Cream by Infusio. And this is probably my favorite out of the Infusio box. There are several different flavors, but Infusio is okay. It's okay. It's not as good as the Two Rivers. But today I wanted to talk about the idea that I may be autistic. Now, I've always said that I have autistic tendencies. I know that I rock when I'm reading books and I'm really into a movie or something like that. I'll rock back and forth. And I know that's an autistic tell, but I never really pursued a diagnosis because I missed it when I was younger. They didn't really diagnose a lot of people as autistic when I was younger, but it fits a lot of the different things that I used to do. Like I used to get really well overwhelmed in crowds and not want to go to hang out with families that my parents would want to take me to, and I'd throw a tantrum because I didn't want to. Um, but in particular, it really explains something that happened in my high school days. Now I was in, I think I was a sophomore, and I was in a math class. I'm dyslexic, especially when it comes to math. And it's very hard for me to do math. So, calculators have been a lifesaver. So I basically was in a math class where it was basic math, and I had a teacher that would pick on me nonstop. Like he would call on me almost every day. And I had these two bully girls who were next to me who thought it was hilarious whenever I answered the question wrong. And I inevitably answered the question wrong. I would hurry through it and try to answer it, and I never got the question right. And that's because I'm dyslexic. I switch numbers. I have to be very careful when I'm doing math. So one day, I just got up, walked out of the classroom, and went and sat in the hallway. And I wouldn't talk to anybody. I was just so overwhelmed that I just didn't have the capability to talk. It was very strange. And it really upset my mom, really upset my special education teacher. They ended up taking me out of that class after I kind of explained what had been going on. And they put me into a special education math class where there was only about 4 people. It was just a lot easier to manage. But it was very difficult for me to kind of process what had happened. And there was no explanation for what it could be until just recently I was listening to someone on TikTok who was talking about neurodivergence and about meltdowns, shutdowns, and I can't remember the other one. But basically, what I experienced was an autistic shutdown. And it just explains a lot of things. Like if I get into a crowded space with a lot of people and a lot of noise, I get really sensory overwhelmed and I have to walk away. I have to find a quiet place and calm down for a while. I went to the San Diego Zoo and it was packed for the holidays one year. And I got into a space where I really felt claustrophobic. I couldn't really breathe. I was having trouble focusing because I was just so surrounded by so much noise and so many people that I had to seek out a quiet place in the park to calm down. And almost every holiday, when we would have a lot of family come to visit, I would go into sensory overwhelm. And, I understood that it was considered rude to hide up into my room and not come down. But it really, put a damper on the holidays, but I always wanted the holidays to be just me and my kids and not anybody else. Wanted to keep it simple. But it always got complicated and a lot of family would come over. And I understand family wants to come over for the holidays and I don't mind guests. But for some reason, around Christmas in particular, I would always get overwhelmed. And, I think it's because I always wanted it to be so perfect. And I just would build up the day in my mind so much. And then when it would come, I'd be overwhelmed and overstimulated. So, basically, from everything that I've read and from my history, it looks like I'm autistic. And I think, at this point, yeah, I'm 43, why would I want a diagnosis now? And that's one of the questions I asked this TikToker. I was like, why should we pursue a diagnosis? And she said, because it's a disability. and you get extra support. And I'm like, that's a good point. And it also puts things more in perspective. Now, I was diagnosed kind of on a weird way that I was bipolar. Basically, someone said that I was bipolar, and it just became a diagnosis. But I've never had mania, and I've never had mood swings. I've always been really stable. Even during hormonal experiences, I was stable. So that never made sense. It did seem to cycle because it was every Christmas that I would get overwhelmed. But if I'm autistic, that explains more and better what was happening than if I was bipolar. Because, yes, well, it seemed like the episodes happened at a certain time several times. Um, it just seems like there was more to it than that. And it, goes back to the history, the rocking, the sensory overwhelm, that sort of thing. That sort of thing doesn't really fit with bipolar. Although I guess there's a lot of trauma overlap. So if people who have trauma overlap a lot with autism. But a lot of the autistic tendencies were there far before the trauma, before my daughter died, before the, PTSD, before any of that stuff happened. I had these autistic tendencies, and it just explains a lot. And like one of the things that I was talking about was like I observed people and behavior. Like I didn't really feel like I felt like I fit in. I observed behavior. I had to learn how to communicate and behave around other people. And I see something similar happening with my oldest daughter. A counselor has gotten involved because he felt like she wasn't really making friends the way that the other kids were. And I kind of wonder if she's a little bit on the spectrum too. I don't know if she's ADHD or autistic, but I definitely am not ADHD. I don't have overwhelming energy. I am very stable when it comes to my energy and my personality and my moods. So, but I can see a little bit of what I had in my daughter, and I definitely want to learn more about it so I can work with her better. But it was always one of those things that, I learned after school how to interact with other people. And it was really customer service jobs. Because when you're in customer service, you have to interact with people. You have to learn how to communicate. Now, it's funny because I learned that not making eye contact is a big deal. Well, I never make eye contact. I'll look kind of at the person's face, but I never really looked directly into the eyes. I don't feel comfortable looking into people's eyes. So eye contact is kind of funny because I really don't do it. And I never really thought of that as a symptom of autism. I didn't realize that was a thing. So I can stare at the screen here because I'm looking at myself, but I'm not really looking into my eyes. I'm just kind of looking at the overall picture. So I think that's very interesting. So more than likely I'm autistic, and I just never got diagnosed, and it explains the sensory overwhelm. And then I think because, as my psychiatrist described me when he changed my diagnosis from bipolar to brief psychosis disorder, it's like, you're just more sensitive than other people. You just may be more sensitive, which is what they describe autistic people as. So, yeah, I'm going to pursue an autism diagnosis and see if that's a thing or not. I'll keep you guys updated with that. It should be pretty interesting. I'm looking into different avenues, and I have an appointment with a therapist who specializes in that. And I'm going to see if she can refer me to a psychologist who can do the assessment. But it's going to be an interesting experience. So I hope you guys are all doing well, and bye for now.